Welcome back to the Big Purpose Podcast, and welcome to the next episode in the Body Mass Identity Weight Loss Identity track. In our last episode, we talked about health agency. Whose decisions are these, really? You met Teresa, 52, 6 attempts and 20 years into a relationship with weight loss that had taught her, quietly and without any single dramatic moment, to stop offering her own opinions about her own body. We talked about the passenger seat, the difference between falling asleep in the back and staying awake up front, glancing at the map, occasionally saying, "Actually, can we try this route instead?" even when someone else is still the one driving. And we ended with Teresa doing something small and almost embarrassingly ordinary, writing one true sentence on a slip of paper and reading it out loud to her doctor and having it actually change something for the first time in 15 years. Today, I want to continue that journey by turning from who's steering to where the road leads. This episode is called Future Body Narrative, and it's about the story you're currently telling yourself about how all of this is going to turn out. Here's what this domain actually measures, because it's easy to walk past without noticing you're even carrying it. Future Body Narrative isn't about optimism or pessimism as personality traits. It's about something more specific and more quietly powerful. The story you're telling yourself, right now, today, about how your relationship with your body is likely to unfold from here. Not what's already happened. We've spent a lot of episodes on that. This one is about the ending you're expecting before it's arrived. For some people, that story is hopeful, and I want to be precise about what hopeful means here, because it isn't naive. It doesn't mean pretending the hard parts weren't hard. It sounds more like this. Things have been difficult, but I believe change is possible, and I have some sense, even a fuzzy one, of what that might look like. For other people, the story is resigned. This is just how it's going to be. I've tried everything. Nothing changes, so why keep expecting it to? And for others still, the story is anxious, not resigned to a flat outcome, but braced for a falling one. Things are going to get worse, and I don't know what I'll do when they do. None of those three are a character flaw. They're not evidence of weak willpower or a bad attitude. They're conclusions, drawn the way any reasonable person draws conclusions, from evidence. If you've tried 6 things and 6 things didn't hold, nothing changes isn't irrational. It's a pattern match. Your mind did exactly what minds are built to do. It looked at the data and made a prediction. The trouble isn't that you made a prediction. The trouble is what a prediction quietly does once you stop noticing it's a prediction and start treating it as a fact. And it can be genuinely hard to tell the difference from the inside, because a well-worn prediction doesn't announce itself as a guess. It shows up sounding like plain common sense, like something you've simply learned, the same tone of voice you'd use to say, water boils at a certain temperature. That's part of what makes this domain so easy to miss. Even after you've done real work in the other 9, you can build real health agency, real rebuilding body identity, real non-weight wins, and still be quietly narrating the whole effort toward an ending you decided on months or years ago, without ever noticing you decided anything at all. And here's why this domain matters as much as any of the other 9 we've walked through together. The story you're telling about the future doesn't just sit there describing your expectations from a safe distance. It reaches backward and shapes your behavior today. If the story underneath everything is, nothing will change, then the motivation to do even the small things, the one written question, the one small act of visibility, the one smallest possible step we keep coming back to in this series, starts to erode, because some quiet part of you has already decided the ending. So what's the actual point of the middle? And it cuts the other way too. If the story is, this is hopeless, then even real, measurable positive developments, a non-weight win, an easier stretch, a moment of actual ease in your own skin, can get waved off or minimized, because they don't fit the story that's already been written. The ending edits the middle. That's the part that sneaks past most people. Let me tell you about a man I'll call Marcus. He's 44, about 14 months into a GLP-1 medication his doctor prescribed after 2 earlier attempts at lifestyle change that had each worked for a while and then, in his words, just stopped working for no reason I could ever figure out. By the time he started this most recent attempt, he'd built a story, and he could recite it without hesitating, the way you recite something you've said to yourself 1,000 times. I always lose it back. Every time. This is just what my body does. I'm not saying that to be dramatic. I'm saying it because it's true. It's happened 3 times now, so it's not a fluke. It's a pattern. And on paper, you can see why he'd say that. 3 times is not nothing. He wasn't wrong about the past. What he'd done, without quite realizing it, was take a description of the past and quietly relabel it as a guarantee about the future. And once it became a guarantee, it stopped feeling like something he had any say in. Here's the reframe that moved something for Marcus, and it's the same one I want to offer you, because it isn't complicated, even though it took him a while to actually feel the difference, instead of just hearing the words. This is just how it's going to be, is a prediction dressed up as a fact. It's being made by a narrator, and we've talked about that narrator before, back in episode 4, who has genuinely good reasons for the prediction. Real disappointments, real fatigue, a real pattern, 3 times over. That narrator isn't lying to you, but that narrator also doesn't actually have access to the future. Nobody does. A more accurate sentence, and notice it isn't a falsely cheerful one, would sound something like, based on what's happened before, I expect this to be hard, and I don't yet know what's possible this time. But I don't actually know how this turns out, because it hasn't happened yet. That's not positive thinking. That's just a true sentence, and it happens to leave a little more room to move than the first one did. I want to give you the image that made this land for Marcus, because he told it back to me in his own words, a few weeks later. So I know it stuck. The difference between "this is how it will be" and "I don't yet know how this will be" is the difference between a closed door and a door that's just hard to open. A closed door, you don't even bother reaching for the handle. Why would you? It's closed. That's the whole story. A door that's hard to open is a different thing entirely. It might take real effort. It might take help. It might take more than one try, and probably will. But hard to open is still a door. Marcus didn't need to believe, that day, that the door was going to open easily or even open at all. He just needed to stop being so sure it was sealed shut, because that certainty was the thing quietly draining his motivation to even walk toward it. Now, I want to bring this directly into the middle of your journey, because if you're currently mid-process, post-surgery, on a medication, deep into a lifestyle change with real structure around it, this domain is doing work on you constantly, whether you're aware of it or not. Every appointment, every weigh-in, every hard week, and every easy one is quietly feeding a narrative that's forming in the background about how this is all going to end. And identity management here, as always, sits alongside your medical and nutritional care, never in place of it. This isn't about deciding you know your medical outcome better than your care team does. It's about noticing the sentence your mind has already written about the ending, and asking gently whether that sentence is a fact or a forecast. Your doctor can tell you what the data shows about outcomes in general. Only you are writing the sentence about what this specifically means about you. I also want to be honest about the trap on the other side of this, because I don't want to leave you with a falsely tidy message. The goal here isn't to force an artificially rosy story that papers over how hard this has actually been. That kind of forced positivity doesn't hold up. It tends to crack under the first real setback, because it was never built on anything true to begin with. The goal is more modest than that, and I think it's actually more honest. Not certainty that the ending will be good, just the loosening of certainty that it's already decided. You're not being asked to believe in a happy ending today. You're being asked to stop signing off on a foreclosed one. This is, in a real sense, where the rest of this series is eventually heading. Later on, we're going to spend real time building something called a future body identity statement. Not a prediction, not a guarantee, but a direction you deliberately choose, rather than one your past simply hands you. We're not there yet, and you don't need to write that today. Today is smaller than that, on purpose. It also helps to remember that future body narrative doesn't live alone. It sits alongside social visibility and health agency as 3 domains that all lean forward, toward the world and toward time. How you let yourself be seen, how much you show up as a participant in your own care, and what story you're carrying about where it all leads. When any one of them tightens up under strain, the other two usually feel it too, because the common thread underneath all three is a kind of withdrawal from being seen, from deciding, from imagining, which means the common thread in loosening them is also shared. Small re-engagement, over and over, in whichever domain happens to be asking for it that day. So here's today's practice, sized the way it always is in this series. Small enough to actually happen in a day that's already full. Take a few minutes, sometime today, and imagine, without needing to believe it fully yet. That part matters. You don't have to believe it. You just have to imagine it. What it might feel like if your relationship with your body kept shifting, even slowly, in a direction that felt more like ease than struggle. Not how it would happen, not the plan, not the mechanism, not the number. Just what it might feel like. Getting dressed in the morning without the usual internal negotiation. Sitting in a chair without doing the calculation you always do. Answering a question about your health with something other than a script you've said 100 times. You don't have to build the bridge to that feeling today. You just have to let yourself stand at the edge of it for a few minutes, on purpose, and notice that it's there to imagine at all. That's the whole practice. A small act of imagining. If you do that today, that's a non-weight win, and it's real, even though nothing about it will show up on a scale. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Begin Purpose podcast. In our next episode, we're going to go back and pick up a thread from earlier in this series, what we call hidden body identity, and the real cost of not yet. We'll talk about the version of you that's been waiting quietly in the wings for the after picture to arrive before it's allowed to fully show up, and what it actually costs to keep someone waiting that long. Until then, do today's practice, a few minutes. No mechanism, no plan. Just the feeling, imagined on purpose, standing at the edge of a door that's merely hard to open. And remember, a failed method does not mean a failed person. You are not broken. This is Begin Purpose, and today is a good day to stop signing off on an ending you haven't actually reached yet. One quick note before you go. This podcast offers identity and self-reflection tools. It is not medical, psychological, or nutritional advice. Always work with your doctor, nutritionist, or licensed professional on decisions about your health, medications, or eating.